Metro Nashville, police, fire, medical.
I was sexually assaulted by this guy.
He sexually assaulted them.
Seems like he's a very dangerous person.
My girlfriend's very concerned for her safety.
There's something so uniquely sinister about him.
I had tears going down my face.
Did you honestly think he would be arrested that day?
I thought he would.
I also kept my socks as DNA evidence. I still don't know what happened to that evidence.
Obviously, there has been a breach in public safety.
People like me are falling through the cracks.
This story made the news in Tarek's hometown.
They had so many case files on this guy, and they just allowed him to keep going.
When you review how this case was investigated,
lazy, dropped the ball, incompetent.
do you feel that police ultimately failed you?
I do. They failed a lot of us.
What do you say to those women that would never get justice?
There's nothing you can say.
This person was a predator.
I think he's a predator.
I had no idea that I was going to a predator.
Watch you burn till you learn.
To write her songs, Peyton Parker looks to her memories.
Like
Some more painful than others.
hurt, really hurt.
I don't really go a day without thinking about it.
I don't even want to look at you.
She was just 25, among the scores of musicians who come to Nashville knowing she'd need a job just to make ends meet while pursuing her dream. So on July 17, 2020, she arrived at this home in North Nashville for a job interview as a massage studio assistant for a man named Tarek Menturi. The studio, it turned out, was inside his home, and the job interview required something Parker wasn't expecting: a massage. Menturi would then put lotion on his hands and begin massaging her shoulders and feet.
He asked me if he could take his shirt off because it was getting hot in the room. And I said, no, I'm not comfortable with that.
Unclear why she was being massaged as part of a job interview, she started secretly recording.
It's so hot here. Sometimes I massage. I can do it with my shirt off, so I'm sweating. Is that okay?
I'm not super comfortable with that right now.
It wasn't long before Parker knew she was in real trouble.
Oh, that feels good.
I noticed he was starting to touch himself in his genital area. I saw his hand on his crotch.
According to the police report she immediately filed, Menturi began masturbating. She said she was leaving, stood up, and left.
I called my mom, talked to her. She was like, you need to file a police report. I expected that he would be arrested immediately, like he assaulted her.
What Peyton Parker and her mother didn't know is just how often it had happened before. A pattern we found that had gone on for years. In fact, long before Peyton Parker even stepped foot in Menturi's home, he already had a string of victims. Victims, it turned out, police were well aware of.
He had his hand on his crotch.
Kelly Cochran, a wife and mother, got a gift card for a massage in February 2018. Cochran would file a police report, citing that Menturi had touched the side of her breasts during her massage, and that he'd taken off his shirt and unzipped his pants.
I just kept saying, this is not okay, this is not okay.
Do you have any doubt that he was actually masturbating?
I don't have any doubt.
10 months after Kelly Cochran went to Menturi, this woman we're calling Jessica booked a massage. She too filed the police report almost immediately afterwards.
He proceeded to put his mouth on my breasts, and then I could feel him getting a boner on top of me.
That had to have been terrifying.
Yeah, super scary.
According to her police report, Menturi grabbed her hand and placed it on his genitals.
I was definitely still in a state of shock driving home.
Did you think he would be arrested?
I did, actually.
Four months after Jessica, Julia Stone would go to Menturi for a massage in Clarksville, Tennessee. That's a military town northwest of Nashville. She wrote in her police report, Menturi made moaning noises and could feel his genitals touch her leg.
I reported the incident within hours of it happening to me.
5 months after Julia, an unidentified woman filed the police report that Menturi put his mouth on both her breasts during a massage. 3 days after that report was filed, Ashley Watkins went to Menturi's house for a job interview.
He put his hands underneath the table and I could hear him touching himself. I was looking around the room at the different doors, wondering if there was a way that I could get out.
In her police report, she wrote, Menturi began to masturbate.
He was moaning, he was gasping for breath. I could hear his hand moving. He licked his hand and put it under the table. I knew exactly what he was doing.
3 months after Ashley Watkins, in November 2019, Taylor Hancock also went for a job interview. Within minutes, she says the assault began.
All the while I'm saying, I don't like this, you need to stop, you need to let me go. Then he instructed me, to go lower, lower, lower until I was massaging his genitals. Then I had to kiss his genitals, and then that turned into full oral sex. In my mind, it was like all I could really do was comply. There was something like so uniquely sinister about him.
Hancock detailed the assault in a police report, reading, she did not wish to prosecute, only wanted it reported. But she says she later reached out to Metro Police because Menturi was texting her, writing, I'm so sorry for exposing myself and having my privates near your face. Menturi, though, wasn't arrested. And he wouldn't be, even after this woman filed the police report in January 4th, 2020, or when a woman filed a report 6 days later, or when a woman filed a report 2 days after that. Following that report, it would be another month and a half before this woman, we're calling Marissa, would come for a massage with Menturi.
He was placing his testicles on my hands. I felt his tongue on my nipples. He was sucking my toes, and I had tears going down my face. So it's not like he was unaware that I was absolutely in a frozen panic.
Like Taylor Hancock, Marissa also received a message from Menturi afterwards.
I said, I paid you for a massage, not an assault.
Did you honestly think he would be arrested that day?
I thought he would. I had irrefutable evidence of what happened, and I thought surely they're gonna go.
On the same day Marissa filed her police report, 2 other women also filed sexual battery complaints about Menturi, including this woman we're calling Nina, who told police he put his genitals in her hand.
I don't think they took it seriously.
In all, 15 women filed police reports on Menturi before Peyton Parker ever went for her job interview.
It's ridiculous that he was able to just prolifically assault people for years with no consequences.
People were also calling 911.
I was sexually assaulted by this guy.
My girlfriend's very concerned for her safety.
He's a very dangerous person. Hello?
May I speak to Ashley, please?
Hi, this is Ashley.
Ashley, my name is Kim Rothwell. I'm a detective with Metro Nashville Police.
That's overnight sex crimes detective Kim Rothwell. Police reports show she was assigned to many of the cases. Through open records requests, we obtained recorded conversations with Rothwell and 2 of the victims, including this one with Ashley Watkins.
I don't generally like us telling people this, but I can tell you I've had multiple reports on him. The problem is a lot of the experiences are like yours, where it gets weird enough that people are like, okay, I'm leaving before something gets more. And he just barely doesn't meet the level of a sex crime. There's an element in sexual battery for most of my cases that we don't reach because we have to prove that it's for sexual gratification. On your case, our situation may be that we can definitely prove that it was for sexual gratification based on your observations.
I mean, he was making noises and had his parts of my body fully in his mouth. It was very obvious what was going on. It wasn't a secret.
I definitely think that simple assault would apply here.
It's unclear if Rothwell knew about all the police reports filed by women, but she does know that not only are Metro Police investigating.
We're working on several other charges. Not just us. I know Clarksville Police has at least one case on him.
That case was Julia Stone's, again in Clarksville, Tennessee. Not only had she filed the report, she'd given them her clothing for potential DNA. Her case not only adding what she says happened, but potential physical evidence.
They still have my clothes and DNA evidence.
It's something Rothwell says in her call with Watkins. She too is after.
We're looking to try to get some DNA from him on another case.
I do still have my socks that I've not washed.
Okay, hang on to those.
And I have them in a plastic bag.
It turns out yet another woman got tested for DNA evidence back in September 2018 as the second documented victim of Menturi. Jessica went to the city's sexual assault center for DNA testing. She did not shower after arriving home.
A nurse came in and she actually swabbed my breasts and my toes and took samples. So I thought maybe they could take samples from my breasts or my feet, do something with the saliva.
Her 2018 report reads, Detective Rothwell of MNPD Sex Crimes was notified.
We've been trying to track him down and get his DNA for a while, and I have not been successful in doing that.
Well, I hope that these socks might be able to make a difference then.
I also kept my socks as DNA evidence. I put them in a brown paper bag and I let them know, I've got clothing with his saliva on it and I can give it to you right now. And I still don't know what happened to that evidence. I don't know if it was ever processed or not. If his DNA was found on it, I don't know.
What we do know is what happened to Julia Stone's clothing. Clarksville police wrote in an email that her clothes were not tested for DNA. The police department citing that Stone's case did not rise to the level of probable cause. In her phone call with Ashley Watkins, Rothwell says getting DNA is vital.
We might, if it's possible, there is a chance what we may do is maybe take out a warrant on him, maybe even for your incident, so we can get him locked up and get his DNA that way.
This definitely needs to be stopped if it's really been going on for this long.
Yeah. Some of them are actual legitimate crimes, and he absolutely needs to be arrested.
What did you think would happen?
None of it went the way I thought it would happen, to be honest. I stopped hearing from the detectives.
I wonder if you thought at the beginning, well, I'm in pretty good hands.
Yeah, I'm a huge Law & Order SVU fan. I thought I had my Olivia Benson, but I did not.
In an email between Rothwell and a Clarksville detective, Rothwell writes they don't have his DNA, that Menturi won't come to the door to talk to police, and quote, "We haven't slowed down enough to be able to get a workable plan for him," citing the vast majority of our cases are only chargeable as simple assaults.
Once it got turned over to Rothwell, I just did not feel like she cared at all. Every time I tried to call her, she just had no information for me.
I heard from the female detective 3 months later. She said it was still in process. She would get back with me. I tried emailing her, tried calling her, never got anything back. I thought maybe someone would get back to me, but no one ever did.
And it turns out women weren't just filing complaints with police. They were also alerting the State Board of Massage Licensure, the agency in charge of revoking massage licenses. A records request with that agency revealed a woman filed a complaint about Menturi with the state for provocative sexual assault during a massage in 2017. The next year, Kelly Cochran would file the complaint with the state as well.
I always thought I would be able to defend myself if I was in this situation, but I completely froze.
This woman says she complained to the state after her assault on March 2020.
I thought they would actually investigate it, and I just never heard back from them.
Marissa did as well.
The massage board had multiple complaints on him and allowed him to keep practicing. So the police and the board, to me, are complicit in my assault and other people's.
I know they do have an open investigation on him.
In an undated phone call with another victim, Rothwell confirms the state is investigating.
I have encouraged, as we'll talk about here, everyone to make a complaint with the massage board as well.
I'm wondering now, like, how is this man allowed to practice with a massage license? How is there no warning? It's kind of scary. I had no idea that I was going to a predator who was being watched by the police.
But those who say they filed with the state say they heard nothing.
Crickets for years until your story came out.
In July 2021, in the wake of the pandemic, frustrated with police, women began to come to WSMV4 Investigates, telling stories of Menturi.
I think he's a predator.
His touched my arm, and I immediately recoiled.
How do you feel that you made these complaints in 2018 and still today nothing has happened?
It's really frustrating. It's really troubling.
We then tracked him down, and he agreed to a FaceTime interview, making bizarre claims, including that the women were after his lottery winnings.
I completely deny the accusations. I won the lottery, and they are trying to do what they can to get a cut of some of my money.
I've interviewed all of these women. Not a single one of them have mentioned at all that you won the lottery.
Well, duh. That would blow their cover.
I find it a little hard to believe that women would go to this extent to file police reports and to go public with this just in a way to try and get money from you.
People have done that, unfortunately.
These women don't know each other. They're all making very similar claims. Doesn't that seem to indicate that something really went wrong?
If anything, I see a lot of differences between the three accusations.
She's pretty upset with police. Metro Police wouldn't comment, citing an ongoing investigation, nor would they release just how many women had filed police reports or release the 911 calls. But as our stories continued to air, more and more women came forward with more scrutiny of the state and police.
When I saw that news story, it kind of destroyed me. I was angry, I was upset.
4 years after the first woman filed a complaint with the State Board of Massage Licensure, they announced they would at last be holding a hearing the next month about Menturi. Before that hearing, the then commissioner of the State Department of Health was part of a state news conference.
Many of these women are very upset with the state, saying, why did this take so long? Do you have answers as to why this took so long?
I'm unfamiliar with the case you're referencing, but I can unequivocally tell you that that is unacceptable at every single level for a practitioner to ever have any inappropriate contact with a customer or a client. And so thank you for that heads up, and I'll be sure to take that back to licensure.
Is it acceptable to you that this has taken this long to even have a hearing that's this serious?
I won't comment on the merits of that case until I know more.
Okay. We'd like to talk to you when you find out about that, please.
Sure.
When we later asked for a follow-up interview, we got an email from the state saying the commissioner, despite her promise, would not be available. And that, quote, even if founded, every violation does not rise to a suspension. Investigations can be complex and take time, particularly as new witnesses or allegations come to light.
Obviously, there has been a breach in public safety.
Also seeing our reporting, Faith Fairhope, a former member of the Board of Massage Licensure.
The whole purpose of the Massage Therapy Board in relation to the public is public safety. So that's why this is such an important story that you're doing.
As a former board member, do you feel like that the system we have now in place to investigate these complaints is flawed?
Apparently, it definitely is.
On August 12, 2020, the board met virtually.
He engaged in sexualizing and unprofessional behavior with these clients. He did things like asking them about whether they'd been kissed on their feet.
Menturi did not attend the hearing to learn that the board would revoke his license. But it turned out that would not stop Menturi.
I felt sexually violated.
After his license was revoked, online ads continued to offer his services. Without knowing about the board's action, this woman booked a massage.
I walked into this situation with no knowledge that this person was a predator.
The woman then filed a police report claiming Menturi placed his genitals on her. Knowing what these women had reported, we decided to send in an undercover producer who easily booked his own massage with Menturi.
I'm Alex. I'm here for the 30-minute.
Mr. Menturi, I'm Jeremy Finley with Channel 4. Sir, we need to ask you about why you're still doing massages when your license has been revoked.
I want him to be prosecuted. I want there to be actual consequences.
But there would be no consequences after we exposed Menturi and his new victim. No action was taken by police. In fact, in this undated phone call with another victim, you can hear the woman ask, why hasn't police conducted their own sting?
Why don't you just mic somebody up and send them in there?
Well, it's an idea that has been passed around my office several times, and it's not something that I have the authority to make happen.
Menturi had also hired a lawyer to fight the board's action, and police reports showed women continued to go to him for massages. If anything, the complaints ramped up. After his license was revoked, 10 more police reports would be filed by women, and Menturi's antics would ramp up too. He began to claim that a twin brother was responsible for the crimes against women, sending us a badly edited photo. We also received a text from his phone number from a purported family member saying he'd recently passed away. Not long after, an online obituary was posted, and then came the voicemails.
This is Mitch again. I just had a question about a thumbnail for an article.
Voicemails left with the company that was then managing the website for WSMV, asking that thumbnail images of Menturi be taken off the website. The caller identified himself as Mitch. At the time, WSMV's news director's first name was Mitch.
It's Mitch again from WSMV.
Not only getting the call letters wrong for the TV station, the email sent about removing Menturi's picture was not the news director's email, nor was it his voice. And the phone number calling?
Please call me back at 770.
Was Menturi's. Articles then began to appear online from fake news sites like the New York Wire, with headlines reading, Tarek Menturi vindicated. But all of this would pale in comparison to the media exposure he was about to receive.
This story made the news in Tarek's hometown.
On October 20th, 2020, Menturi became the subject of a two-part Dr. Phil episode. With a now nationwide audience, Menturi agreed to take a lie detector test.
John, what was the result?
Major deception.
Here's the thing, he doesn't have an identical twin.
The twin picture and story was intended to be a complete sarcastic joke.
Also featured on the episodes, body language experts. What's your take on Mr. Menturi?
Well, you made a good call on this guy because you nailed it. He's the kind of person, in my opinion, that has explosive anger.
Do you find him to be a dangerous individual?
Yes. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 10. I'm voting on the psychopath side. I think he's a dangerous personality.
We would then learn this wasn't the first time Menturi had appeared on national television.
I'm working on a massage therapy license.
Clips of him then surfaced from his appearance years earlier on the MTV show Catfished, where he was busted for pretending to be someone else, even going by his middle name, Isaac.
My name is Isaac. That part was true.
You don't think that there's anything wrong with deceiving people?
No, I didn't know what to think. I didn't feel comfortable at first. And I got caught. This was dishonest, and I have to apologize.
As 2020 ended and 2021 began, a sign briefly hung on Menturi's home, reading he was out of state and possibly moving away permanently. Not only victims wondered if he'd ever be held accountable.
People like me are falling through the cracks.
But so did Menturi himself, sending this email to police on March 23rd, writing, I have been the subject of a criminal investigation with many complaints, reports over the last 2 years against me. I'd like to know if that investigation has ended, please. And emails show it wasn't just victims who were frustrated. On March 31st, 2021, sex crimes prosecutor Sarah Butler sent an email to Matt Dixon, a high-ranking Metro sex crimes detective, about missing victim cases. Butler writing, we are still missing many that are still within the statute of limitations. Many of these have statutes that run out soon. Sex crimes prosecutor Chad Jackson wrote, my problem is Rothwell told the victim on or about August 26th that the case files would be coming over to our office in a couple weeks. And here we are, 6 months later. Working midnights at the time, Rothwell responds. Several of the case files listed in the email from last week are not even assigned to me. The rest I will prepare as my cases this week allow. I am currently on call and work night shifts by myself in a very busy Nashville. Prosecutor Chad Jackson emails Detective Dixon, writing that Rothwell is seemingly putting them together with the same sense of urgency with which she conducted these investigations. Then, on April 13th, 2021, 8 months after we exposed him still booking massages, Metro Police finally did the same, setting up their own sting, charging him with impersonating a licensed professional. Mr. Menturi, is there anything that you want to say to your accusers?
I don't speak English.
You're making a joke at this time? I don't think those women would find that funny.
I don't speak English.
Only facing a misdemeanor charge, Menturi bonded out. Emails between prosecutors and detectives continued. Jackson writing Dixon again, we are almost a month from our first request for the case files. We are approaching another statute of limitations. Time is of the essence. 2 weeks later, on May 14th, 2021,
Metro Police, come to the door!
Police were back at the home of Tarek Menturi.
We're going to let our SWAT team members conduct their search.
This time, the charges were far more serious. rape, sexual battery, assault, and kidnapping. Once again, Menturi made a joke. Do you have anything you want to say?
Do you have any shoes?
Do I have any shoes? Body camera footage shows Menturi concerned about his belongings.
You know, they're like tearing up my whole home, so I had to answer that we're breaking in, basically.
And surprise over the charges.
Is it nice? Go ahead, yes.
Just as surprised, Peyton Parker, when we arrived to tell her the news. Trek Menturi was charged with rape, kidnapping, and sexual battery.
Oh, I don't want to curse. Oh my God, are you serious?
I am serious.
I'm shaking. Wow.
And you were the first one, you were the first woman to come forward to us and tell us this.
Yeah.
He faces 17 counts of criminal charges.
I'm speechless. I don't know. Thank you for taking the story and not giving up.
But there would be little to celebrate. As hard as it was to comprehend, there would be another reported victim. Prosecutors say when Menturi was allowed to bond out after being charged with that misdemeanor, he'd assaulted another woman who came for a job interview.
Very scared. I was not there for a massage. I did not ask for a massage, and I told him to stop massaging me. He started masturbating.
Still, Menturi's attorney argued for a lower bond.
He's still presumed innocent until proven guilty. He has Asperger's, and at times he does things that he doesn't know are crossing the lines.
Prosecutors fought back.
This defendant is a dangerous sexual predator.
Judge Jennifer Smith's ruling, Menturi would be granted a $50,000 bond, required to wear an ankle monitor, prohibited from contacting victims and accessing several social media sites, and required to ask permission to leave Davidson County. Permission that would be granted. As he said, he wanted to help his ailing mother in Atlanta. The now accused rapist headed south. With the intense media scrutiny in Nashville, Menturi would once again stun everyone with his desire to be on television and continue to try and massage women.
This is what we call vicarious liability.
Menturi would contact Atlanta affiliate WXIA and investigative reporter Brendan Keefe, pitching a story of how he was successfully suing robocallers, even sharing checks of the money he'd made.
It's not just about the money.
But Menturi didn't give his real name, using instead Isaac Men. On the checks, his name was blurred out. Keefe is one of television's top investigative journalists and caught the lie before going to air and reached Menturi by Zoom.
I looked for Isaac Men. There is no Isaac Men. Who is Tarek?
That's me.
You gave me a fake name.
No, I go by my middle name.
But your last name isn't Men. It's Menturi, isn't it?
It's abbreviated.
And you're currently awaiting trial on 21 counts in Tennessee, correct? 12 of those are felony charges. We're talking about rape, kidnapping, sexual battery.
Actually, my lawyer told me not to discuss my charges or defenses, if that's okay.
Why then would you call a TV station while you're awaiting trial in another state on multiple felonies?
Oh, I just wanted to discuss this wonderful opportunity and share it with people. It's very newsworthy.
I was in your home alone, sitting across from an accused kidnapper, rapist, felon out on bail awaiting trial, and I had no idea.
And Menturi wasn't just trying to once again appear on television. WSMV4 identified 3 women in Atlanta who say Menturi offered to give them massages.
He closed the door and locked it, and that time I felt a little frightened.
Telling one woman he wanted to restart his massage business, not mentioning his license was revoked in Tennessee and inactive in Georgia.
He came out with lotion.
Lotion, yes. He came out with a lotion.
And once again, using a fake name.
First, he called himself Isaac Miller, and it was Isaac Men. And he insisted that he really wanted to give me a massage, and he wanted to come to my house to do this.
Back in Nashville, Prosecutors would learn one of the Atlanta women had filed an order of protection. Among Menturi's bond conditions, no Facebook. The woman claimed he'd repeatedly contacted her through Facebook Messenger.
I'm afraid of him because through this entire time, he still has yet to say who he actually is.
This behavior that is indicating a threat that this defendant still poses to the community.
Judge Jennifer Smith had had enough, revoking his bond.
The court will no longer take any other chances with Mr. Menturi while this case is pending.
Then came word of a plea deal. Menturi at last admitted guilt to some sex crimes, including sexual battery, sentenced to prison for 6 years, required to register as a sex offender. After court, his attorney wouldn't explain Menturi's abrupt about-face.
Why did he accept the plea? No comment. There's nothing you can say on his behalf? No.
And prosecutors wouldn't say why many of the most serious charges, like rape, were dropped.
Can't comment on why that was dismissed.
No. In a statement released afterwards, the district attorney's office wrote they have to weigh evidentiary strength of each case, and a large part is victim cooperation. But in just 3 of the police reports is it documented the victims cited they did not want to prosecute.
I'm as satisfied as I can be with what we got. Like, getting any jail time at all for him I think is great, and having him on the sex offender registry is extremely important. Obviously, he did more serious crimes, so it would be nice if he was also convicted of those, but you got to take what you can.
For women like Kelly Cochran, Ashley Watkins, and Julia Stone, though, there would be no justice. So much time had passed since filing their police reports, the statute of limitations had run out.
They absolutely dropped the ball. It's not the victim's fault that this took so long.
Do you feel that police ultimately failed you?
I do. They failed a lot of us.
With the case file now closed, WSMV4 Investigates filed an open records request for the entire police file, which would at last reveal the disturbing truth. It would take 25 women filing police reports over a 4-year period before Menturi would be arrested on sex crimes charges.
The next time you hear about someone being assaulted and you say, well, why didn't they tell someone sooner? Why didn't they report if this happened? I want you to look at this situation. That's why. This is why people don't report.
After 4 years of asking for an interview, Metro Police finally agreed, not allowing us to interview Detective Rothwell, but instead Inspector Rita Baker, who began supervising the sex crimes unit after the Menturi investigation. Baker admitted even she had no idea how many women had filed reports before Menturi was arrested. 25 is a lot.
A lot, too many. Agree, I can't disagree with you on that.
25 women that endured this over and over and over again
Yes.
after women reported.
And that's 25 too many.
But I'm wondering if you think that simply it took too long.
I would say absolutely it took too long. There's no excuse. There's never an excuse. But there's reasons why it may have delayed.
So what are the reasons? Chief among them, according to police, 2020 itself. The year when Menturi's crimes spiked, Metro Police had to divert detectives. Along with a pandemic, a tornado ripped through the city as well that year.
Add the tornado, add COVID, and just difficult times in general, it was difficult. Now, is it okay to have excuses? Never.
But that still didn't explain the years before and after 2020. Metro Police admitted Rothwell had too many cases in that time, and the fact that she worked the midnight shift hampered communication with victims. But police also say they did present 12 victim cases in October 2020 to the district attorney for potential prosecution. No one from the DA's office would comment about that claim, But multiple sources within that department say prosecutors never saw the details of those 12 cases, and police had already officially closed many of those cases because of lack of cooperation with victims. In emails to WSMV4 Investigates, notes from detectives claimed some victims stopped responding. We read to Marissa what detectives wrote in her case.
Sergeant Dixon made several attempts to contact victim, but never received a response.
That's not true. I think that once it got exposed in the news what was happening, I think that there's probably some embarrassment, and instead of owning that and making changes and apologizing, I think it's easier for them to double down and blame the victims.
But what about the women who wanted their cases prosecuted and the statute of limitations ran out?
What do you say to those women that would never get justice?
There's nothing you can say. You know, there's nothing you can say to make that better. We care deeply about our victims. We've made some changes in the division to make it better over the last year, but there's nothing you can go back and say to those women. That's not okay.
Those changes were detailed in an email to WSMV4 Investigates. Changes that revealed the far-reaching implications of how this case was handled, or, according to victims, mishandled. A Metro Police spokesman wrote, "Following the Menturi investigation, the Sex Crimes Unit now deliberately tracks the number of cases opened and closed weekly. The office conducted internal audits on case management and a self-initiated audit of older cases. 4 detectives were added to the Sex Crimes Unit. Detectives' workload was greatly reduced from 151 cases per detective to 105. Detective Rothwell's caseload was reduced by more than 50%. As for Rothwell, there was no fallout though. No disciplinary action was taken." When you review how this case was investigated, what's the word that comes to mind for you?
Lazy, dropped the ball, incompetent. They weren't doing their job.
I have to ask you if you feel like police let these women down.
Yes. They did not receive the justice that they deserved.
But there was still someone who we hadn't been able to hold accountable, Menturi himself. You have agreed to this interview next Tuesday, correct? Despite years of a cat and mouse game, agreeing to interviews and then backing out, we reached him in prison. 2 weeks later, Menturi entered a visiting room at the Davidson County Jail. Why did you finally agree to answer our questions?
Well, now that my charges are no longer pending, I can speak more openly and not have to worry about anything being misconstrued or used against me.
These are all the police reports that have been filed about you by women. 25 women.
Oh, is it 25 women? Wow.
You don't know?
I didn't know it was that many.
What do you say to them?
I'd like to offer a personalized apology to each one of them, but unfortunately I don't have time for that, but I will offer a big apology.
Some of these women actually wept.
And then, sorry.
When I did interviews with them, describing what you did to them.
In my mind, it was like all I could really do was comply.
Are you aware of the damage you've caused?
I think after all this time, I am, and that breaks my heart to hear that any women were in tears.
Multiple stories where multiple women at this point had come forward. Were you surprised that police hadn't arrested you?
I was. Some of these allegations, I think, went as far back as August of 2017. And not to mention, you'd already done, well over 12 news stories that fall. The most serious one, the rape allegation, was I was arrested a year and a half later.
If they had arrested you when the first complaints came in, would you have stopped?
There would have been a major change to my behavior in terms of, obviously I would have been meeting women online less or luring them into my home less.
Were you purposely trying to lure them there in order to commit that crime?
Yes, I think they think it's pretty clear that I invited them to my home under false pretenses. There's just no other way to put it other than the fact that what I did was wrong. It was underhanded, it was sneaky.
You said that you won the lottery, that the women were trying to get a cut of the money. At some point you told me you had a twin brother who was committing the crimes. You told me after you had been arrested, I don't speak English. You lied over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we know you're not lying now?
The twin brother was a very tasteless joke.
At the time, did you think it was a game?
I hate to admit it, but unfortunately I was at the time more concerned with, I think, having maybe an arrogant or sarcastic attitude with you.
It seemed like at one point that you were playing a cat and mouse game with us. Were you playing a cat and mouse game here? Were you thinking this was a game?
I hate to admit it, but unfortunately I did not take these news stories as seriously as I should have. And sometimes in life we learn things the hard way.
There's a lot of people with autism spectrum disorder who would never dream of doing what you did. And they may be offended that you would even use that as an excuse or an explanation.
I never really wanted to use it as an excuse. There's at least some minimal relevance to my Asperger's syndrome that caused me to meet women the way I did and misjudge some boundaries.
You referred to them as crossing boundaries, but you pleaded guilty to 3 felony counts of sexual battery.
Yes.
So crossing boundaries is one thing. Sexual battery is very different. Do you understand the difference? Yes. You understand the seriousness here?
Yes, I don't say crossing boundaries to minimize my actions.
Despite his apologies, Menturi still insists. In the case of 2 women, they were mistaken.
She felt my chin briefly on her left hand. She probably thought that she felt my genitals.
Women are pretty smart. They know what they're feeling. It's going to be hard for people to hear you say that and to believe you.
I understand that it can be hard.
This story made the news in Tarek's hometown.
My name is Isaac. That part was true.
Do you have a fascination with being famous?
Yeah, I think that it's clear that I do like attention.
How can any of these women, frankly, how can any woman feel safe when you're released?
Depending upon the circumstances of my release, whether it's probation or mandatory parole, or at a minimum the sex offender registry, there will be different forms of supervision and accountability. For the first time in my life, I'll be a convict. I had a clean record before this, I'll be a felon. So I have to be mindful of obviously not wanting to reoffend, because obviously if I ever reoffended or came back to jail for anything for that matter, I would more than likely get a more severe punishment. I'm determined to not come back to jail.
There's a million things that I could do, a million things that I could do to hurt you.
For Peyton Parker, knowing her testimony helped put Menturi at last in prison wasn't enough.
This is an initial parole hearing.
She also showed up at his parole hearing as he requested an early release.
I'm sorry, sometimes I just get a little emotional just because I feel a lot of guilt over what I did. My accusers find comfort with that.
He referred to the women as his accusers.
It is hard for him to still be talking this way about his, what he calls accusers, when we're his victims. It still enrages me.
So she testified.
My name is Peyton Parker. I'm a victim of Tarek Menturi. I don't believe any of his crocodile tears, and I don't believe that he feels a shred of remorse.
The parole official not only recommended his parole be denied, but that he serve his entire sentence.
That is my recommendation. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And the parole board agreed.
And then hearing we recommend to decline was like a whoa. So I just sort of like let it all out. How will I know? And you know, it had to show him what real tears looked like.